All right.
How was your day?
Good. I'm at my day job today, so change of pace. How about yours?
It was a very long day.
Yeah.
I'm a high school art teacher in Queens, New York.
Oh, cool.
And the kids, tomorrow is our last day of school before our spring break, so the kids are, off the wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, we
ready
have,
for
I
me.
feel like you guys must be on a different schedule because our spring break was like a month ago, and it's like basically feels like summer's almost here kind of thing.
Yes, I can't
Which
wait. I can't wait.
it's funny. Teachers are excited, parents less.
I know.
No, it's fun. I mean, I have five kids that are all school age. Well, four of them are school age, one's younger, but so it's like we go from quiet to chaos pretty quick. So that's
Chaos.
why I'm actually at the public library right now because they're home and it would be a lot of screaming in the background. So
Oh, wow. Okay. At least you have a
fights
quiet
and
space.
yeah, so this is a little break for me, honestly.
Well, this is one I really I'm so fangirling right now. You by the way.
Oh, awesome! Glad you got it. Cool.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I've been following you for ages, and I have your posters up in my
Wow.
classroom
Oh,
because
great.
I love the sentiment. I love the push to find creativity and inspiration wherever.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's wonderful. I don't know if the kids actually pay attention to what's on my
That's all
walls.
right. It'll sink in by osmosis.
Right, right. All right. I'm going to make you while I have you by ourselves, I'm going to make you co-host.
Okay.
Um and then I'm going to start letting people in. What I usually do is say, do a little spiel and say welcome, and then I introduce my guests. And I don't know if you want to follow any specific train, if you want to plug all your books. This is great. I also have the one about ideas.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that's enough between those two to,
Hmm.
yeah, I'll take it where you want to go. I'm just starting like school visits for poetry comics. So I'm like, that's in the forefront of my brain right
In
now.
your
But
brain,
yeah,
right?
basically, yeah, I'm open to whatever you'd like to hear about.
That's
I
fine.
have
If you
some
want to do
sketchbooks and
like
stuff.
any kind of a presentation first, and then we could do a Q&A. Um, because I think that most of us are art educators
Oh, okay,
at all different levels. This club is specifically for art educators. And I started it during COVID
cool.
so that we all had like our own support system when everything went remote. And we are all just here trying to inspire each other, keep ourselves motivated, exchange ideas, best practices, project ideas. And I am also on the board of trustees for NYSATA, which is a New York State Art Teachers
Oh,
Association,
nice.
as well as the New York City Art Teachers
You're
Association.
busy.
Yeah. So this is fantastic for inspiring those of us who are artists, but also who love the written word and how to incorporate all of that into our art somehow, one way or the other.
So if I do like, because what I've been trying with the students that I visited yesterday was like just my haiku comic, which you probably saw me post. If I
Yeah,
like say, okay, follow along and draw this, I mean, it shouldn't take too long. Would
right.
that be a good way to start, or would you rather I just kind of I didn't really specifically prepare anything because I thought it was a Q and A, but I'm open to doing that
You
or
could
just
tell us basically who you are, how
okay,
you got started, how you went from orthopedics, right?
orthodontist, yeah.
Orthodontics. I knew it was an ortho something. I'm so sorry.
No, that's
Orthodontics, and then now you're like a comic artist, author, amazing, inspiring human being. Um, and how you combine that and balance it and give yourself, because I think the hardest thing for art educators is to find a balance between our day job and
oh yeah,
nurturing ourselves.
your actual art that's your own, not
Yes,
your
because a
students.
lot of us are so like soul sucked,
Uh-huh.
on empty and fumes at the end of our day, like where do we put the time, and how do we make sure that we give ourselves that space to be creative for ourselves, because that in itself will nurture the other side, which is the side that we need for school.
Right.
um, so if you could talk about how you went from one to the other, where you find your balance, your inspiration, and then you could plug your books and stuff. And if you want to do that comic haiku exercise with us, we could do that and do Q&A. What do you think?
Sure, sure, perfect. Yeah, and I get a little bit, my brain does not follow a logical train sometimes. So sometimes if you, interject a question or kind of keep me focused, otherwise I'll just tend to ramble. But
That's fine. Artists are like that. We do that all the time. We say, "Oh,
it's nice.
squirrel," and then we're, going that way.
It's nice when I can put it on paper and have it, okay, you have to fit in this space. But sometimes I start talking and it's like, well, that didn't go where I wanted it to. So
But
anyway,
that's okay. That's a, what do they call that? A teachable moment.
a non-linear thought train.
Right, right, right. But that's fine.
Okay.
And we'll just
So
go.
basically, I'm
We
just
are
saying, feel free
very.
to interrupt me if I'm, yeah.
We're totally informal.
Okay. Good.
Everybody here, we're all friends. We may not all know each other, but we are all in the same boat, and
Uh-huh.
don't worry about formalities or anything. It's just not, it's not like that. So wherever the session takes us, we're happy to
And
follow.
you think, is it about an hour? Is that what you shoot for? Or what's the,
We go until
yeah.
8:30.
Oh,
If we're
okay.
a little earlier, if we're a little later, it's not a big deal.
Okay.
Some people only stay for an hour because they have other stuff to do. And also, we're starting to give teachers need something called CTLE hours, which is professional development hour
All right.
credit. So I'm going to make an announcement at some point and put a link in the comments for them to click on the link so that they can put their name in a form so we can give them credit for tonight's time.
Great.
Um, so I may have to interrupt to do that if people start to leave earlier, just to make sure that they get their name in there so that they get their credits.
And you'll read Q&As that people are putting in the chat. Is that how that
Yes,
works?
I will guide it so you don't have to look in three places at once. So I'll hand it over to you, and then I'll interrupt, or I'll pop up with a question that comes up, or whatever it is. But let's start with, how you started, your history. Plug your wares, man. You deserve all the kudos. And we'll go from there. Let it be
Cool. This is
organic,
fun.
wherever
Yeah, thank you.
it goes.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. So let me admit all. We have a huge amount of people,
Great.
which is amazing. I'm also going to um spotlight you so
So
everybody
amazing. I would
Sure.
get on a plane to go to
you.
Europe just to see it.
So, I don't know if I have to tell him that or not, but he
Whoops,
needs
and
to
then
know that
mute
that's going to be
everybody.
going
Guys,
going
could you
on.
please mute yourselves when you pop in? That would be really great, and we appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna spotlight myself. There we go. There we go. Okay. Oh, people are still coming in. This is amazing. I think it's a record
Oh,
of
wow.
attendees so far. I mean, 27. We usually have about 12, 15 people on a regular basis. Welcome everybody. I hear keyboard clacking away. I don't know who that is. Oh, they muted this, so thank you. So we are here tonight with a very special person to me, Mr. Grant Snyder, who I have been following for a few years, and I'm totally fangirling tonight. And I'm going to show you. I have his book, his newest book, if you could see it. Why doesn't there? That's good.
Blending with your back. I have it too.
Yay! And I have a couple of his other books too. So I'm really excited about this. This is the one that your every guest is special, and every person that does our sessions is special, but you're published, and this is really cool. And you have a day job, and you do your love on the side too, and it works. And it's like, how do you find your balance between your you know, earning money to pay the bills and taking care of your family and making space for your own personal artistic needs that have to be met. I think that is a big stressor, big question for, and a big challenge for most art teachers and people who are artists who also have to pay bills. Um, so, and I just have to say, and when you meet somebody in real life, you have no idea what to expect, what they're going to look like, if they really look like the picture on the back of the books and all that, and you looking like exactly who you are. And um, um, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll make a joke about that before I start talking. So if you see me on the street in New York, it's not me, it's my identical twin brother, Gavin.
Really?
He's an architect, and he also does Instagram illustration, mainly buildings and some street scenes. So if
Uh-huh.
you see a guy who looks like me with a beard and about 20 pounds more muscle, that's Gavin. That's my twin. So I don't make it to New York but once every 5 or 10 years, but I'd love to love to be there again
Fantastic.
too.
All right, well, we'll
Um,
be on the lookout.
so yeah, and he made I put up a reel sharing my poetry comics post, and he made some comment of like, oh, if this is what the artist looks like, I'm unfollowing now. And I think some people thought he was being serious, didn't click through to see it was my twin brother trolling me. So
Oh,
anyway,
that's funny.
but yeah,
That's
we were talking a little bit before, Stephanie, about the finding that balance between like the energy you're pouring into your job, because obviously teaching's a job. For me, teeth is a job, as is writing books, and just your personal art, making your development, your own creativity that fuels not just your work life, but your life as a whole. And for me, this is like this is a lifelong struggle. um, so I started out as an engineering student back in the day and didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I liked math and science. I thought I wanted to do something with art. I had no idea what that was. Stumbled into drawing cartoons for my student newspaper and realized cartooning was that thing for me. So I drew cartoons for a lot of years, all the while wondering, hey, is this ever going to be a real job? And then one day I woke up and realized it was. I had developed an online audience through incidental comics, which I still post weekly to on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, every social media thing that's been known to man from here, except TikTok. And yeah, started doing that weekly, and that really kept me going. Eventually got into the books world, but yeah, for me, it's always finding, okay, where do I fill in that time to create my art? How do I keep it fresh? How do I keep not repeating myself?
mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think I've read a lot of books where the artists and authors talk about like finding that time of the day where you're most like inspired, where you're most free from those other obligations. And for about the first decade, I would say of me doing my work, it was waking up early in the morning. And I'm not a morning person.
Exactly.
But
Like I would rather
yeah.
sleep than get up early in the morning to do anything.
And I was the same way, but I realized, especially like when my daughter was born 11 and a half years ago, there's going to be no other time for me to do this. Like if I don't find this time, it's going to fall away. And so I was a little bit terrified when I was at that busy point in my life, but I started making a big pot of coffee early in the morning, getting to my drawing table before I started my email, my school obligations, my work obligations. And I found that just by putting together these chunks of like 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes an hour and a half on the days I was feeling really motivated, as long as I strung 3 or 4 or 5 of those days together in a week, I could keep doing what I wanted to do, keep, building my art, keep making books, and keep it going. So um,
Can I
I'm a
ask,
little bit, yeah, sorry, go.
are you formally, like, I know you said you went to school for engineering, but did you take art classes or is it just you developed your style all on your own?
No, I mean, I think at least my understanding when I was getting into school was I didn't know there was any like way to study cartooning. I'm sure there was, I just didn't find it. And I hadn't really stumbled on cartooning as something I like to do. So no formal art training. I did have a really amazing high school art teacher. His name was Rich Canfield. He made us call him Rich. He was about 6'5". At least in my memory, he's like this super tall, like, you know, uh, imposing person, very soft spoken. And although I don't think I ever received any like technical feedback, from him on my assignments, he would always ask the most fascinating questions, like, well, what if he did it using these two colors instead of this, or what if he did it this way? And he was just looking at your art, thinking about it in this very deep way that you would never even think of encountering it. So yeah, I'm trying to like write a story right now with an art teacher as one of the characters, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to make Rich into one of these, this wise art teacher, Obi-Wan Kenobi type character in this
Oh,
book.
cool.
Expect it on your shelves in about 10 years, probably.
Okay. We have one
Yeah, no,
question already before we get any further.
yeah.
Michelle would like to know, does your daughter like to draw?
So she's a really big reader. So I'll probably talk a little bit about the balance in my life between writing and reading,
Mhm.
especially with poetry and comics. My latest book. So she's into reads like 10 times more than I do, and I consider myself a big reader. She's started to write stories and has a bunch of ideas that she wants to get down on paper, and loves doing crafts. But I don't know that she's gotten as into the, the drawing itself. My 9-year-old son draws comics. I feel like has my identical brain, which is terrifying to me. So I think maybe if he wanted to push it forward, he could definitely continue in the family business if he'd like to.
Oh, that's great. All right, I will let you, I will be quiet and let you get on with your
Well, no, I think what I was coming back to was
yes.
where was I going? Oh yeah,
Um,
you asked about training. So
yes.
no, I think at least for what my understanding of a lot of cartoonists is, you just learn by doing. You see something out there, maybe it's a comic strip you're inspired by, a book you read and love the illustrations. You say, oh, how can I do my version of this? So another word for that would be copying. Obviously,
Mhm.
you guys have probably all read Austin Kleon's book "Steal Like an Artist," which I think really applies to cartooning, because I think every cartoonist who's made a career of it found one or two or three or five different artists whose work they liked and said, I'm gonna do my imitated version of this, and eventually you combine enough of those influences and it makes your own unique influence of that. So if you looked at my drawings in college, you'd say, man, that looks like Grant's trying to rip off Roz Chast, the famous New Yorker cartoonist, because I was. Um, if you look at my drawings a little bit after that, it's like, well, I can't tell Grant's drawings from Tom Gauld, the New Yorker cartoonist who draws bookish comics, whose work I love. And lately, it's Jean-Jacques Sempe. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. The French cartoonist who has this amazing line work that I loved. And so all these different people have combined to like make my drawing style what it is right now, which I think there's no other way of learning.
Really very, very true. We all start off imitating who we admire and who influences us. Always, yeah.
Yeah, and so as my drawing passion and hobby has turned into more like a real job, I've had the, I guess, luxury maybe is the right word, or privilege to be able to do it more regular hours. So as I get older, those morning hours don't seem quite as attractive. um, I still think that's probably where my brain is the most fresh. So, but now that's me getting to the drawing table at 8 or 9 a.m. Once my kids are off to school, still with that cup of coffee, still with my mind fresh, and trying to do it before I start sending a bunch of emails or posting to social media. But yeah, now it's more of like a 8 to noon or 8 to 1 p.m. job, and then I'll spend the rest of the afternoon wandering around, handling the admin part of my day, maybe reading a book, or maybe trying to like refill my my tank for whatever art I might need to do the next day.
Right. And so your comics have inspired me because they kind of center on the theme of inspiration and find it anywhere. Like, do not, anything in the world could be that spark that leads you to create in any form, really, to make artwork, visual artwork, or to write about what you're feeling or write about what you're seeing. And words and books are clear theme throughout all of your your artwork and your books as well. I mean, I love the book. I'll judge you. I love the title. I'll judge you by your bookcase.
Oh yeah, I would
That's
judge you by your
fantastic. And I know that a lot of us you feel that way when we go into someone's home and we see what's on the bookcase. It tells us all about who that person is. When did you find that you wanted to transition from just doing it for yourself, that it could be something more for the masses?
I mean, I think everyone has those grand ambitions of like seeing your work in the hands of others and being read or admired on a wall or shared on social media. But maybe that initial spark for me was when I was drawing for the student newspaper, just walking on campus and seeing somebody reading the newspaper and seeing my cartoon. And I was like, oh, are they laughing? Are they what's their reaction? And so yeah, just seeing, oh, this is a real life person who I would never know, never meet that can encounter my work. Um, and to take it back to what you were saying about, the inspiration, one thing I basically kind of credit for that transformation from, oh, I kind of do this for fun and it's something I like to do, versus, oh, this is something I can build on and treat as a profession, is the humble sketchbook. So as I'm sure you guys are all, or most, sketchbooks or notebook devotees. And so maybe that, I don't know when this was, but I think the biggest artistic turning point for me was when I realized, oh, I can keep this notebook in my backpack, in my back pocket, in my car with me, and I can have that with me, and I can collect these ideas. So when I sit down to my desk and have to come up with a cartoon idea, come up with a story, um, I'm not starting from nothing. I'm not starting from the blank page. I'm starting from this full sketchbook of maybe a few brilliant ideas, maybe a few really bad ones, maybe the rest somewhere in between. Um, so when I go into schools every so often and talk to students and share my books, that's that if they have one message to take away from it, that's really what it would be, is like, start keeping a notebook, start keeping a sketchbook. So you can see I have my gigantic mixed media sketchbook. I have my tiny pen and ink sketchbook. I have my random sketchbook that my parents got me for Christmas, but I didn't actually want this kind, but I started to use it anyway because I felt guilty. um, and so, yeah, that's like creative rocket fuel, is to like look back in your sketchbook and see, okay, here's an idea I had a fragment of inspiration for, maybe some months ago. What can I turn this into now? So at my day job, I can sit and go on Pinterest and find old comic strips, and I can doodle and say, okay, how did the artist structure these panels? How can I steal this, copy this, turn it into something? So here's, I don't know how well it comes off on the screen, but I found this cartoonist named Lionel Feininger, who was also an abstract expressionist painter back in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and found some of these amazing comic strips he did. I'm like, oh, this panel structure looks like it could have been drawn like yesterday. Like, he's doing some things that I need to I need to borrow and steal. So yeah, that's the sketchbook for me, is just like a mental record of everything I encounter, looking at art, looking at other people's work. When I'm reading, I'll write down little, like, what I call my words of wonder, where I let's see if I can find some of those. Or just make a list of these words that are striking my fancy as I'm reading like a book of poetry or a novel. Um,
Do the words come first for you, or do the images come first?
yes.
Yes.
So I'll explain. And
Okay.
here's where I'm doing more like just traditional life drawing with colored pencils. So the reason I say yes is because it really depends. When I'm making my poetry comics, it's this like combination of words and pictures. So I feel like the best of these are ones where the words and pictures arose simultaneously, because
Mhm.
a comic strip is words and pictures combined. If you just have one and not the other, it's going to feel incomplete. Um, and so a lot of times I'll basically be sketching just rough panels and images and putting the words with it. Occasionally I will do like the words first. I'll write a poem in my notebook and then I'll come back to it later and say, oh, this could be a comic strip. How can I illustrate it? How can I maybe flip around some of the words and put pictures with it too. So, and then occasionally like I'll have like an image in my head where it's just a picture, and now I have to put a story or put some words to that. So yeah, all three. But for me, I think the most organic is when words and pictures happen together.
Fantastic. Cindy says, I had no idea Lionel Fenninger was also a cartoonist. I love his painting and drawing work.
Yeah, and I think this is, I've gone as far as to just look up his Wikipedia article, so I'm no expert, but I think he actually quit the cartooning when his painting, took off. And I really wish, it'd be interesting to see somebody who's a working, modern painter who had also kept drawing comic strips on the side. That would be fascinating to me.
You recently posted on Instagram a video of your process.
Yeah, the one my twin brother commented on, right?
Yeah. I think I tried to share that on my Facebook page. I want to say that I'd love to show it here. You said you're not at home with your stuff, right? So you don't have that ready. Like you could hit a button and hit play, right?
I could try to share my screen and bring up Instagram. Would that work?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna do that, but sure. Okay.
Actually, no, if you might do it more quickly than I am. As you can see from that video, my tech is a combination of old and new.
Okay, let me minimize. You keep talking, and when I cannot minimize Zoom when I'm recording. Oh, okay. Well, then you do have to do it.
All right, let me give it a shot.
Okay. Bear with us, everyone. I really would love to show this video because I was like, wow, this is perfect timing. 3 days from our session. It was really great. Michelle would like to know what's your Instagram handle.
It is at Grant Draws, published by Chronicle Kids Books. Okay, so I have it here. Let me see if I can share my screen effectively.
Draws. I just posted it for everybody.
So starting my audio, with my sketchbook. I have ideas, drawings, notes, scribbles of things I want to make a comic about. I make a rough sketch, including pictures and words. My drawing ended up in a few different scraps. With my scanner, I'm going to scan the drawing into Photoshop. Too many books, no such thing. When I step into a story, the world slips away.
I love
Hi,
it.
my name is Grant Snyder. So did it all play through?
Yeah. Okay. I love the simplicity and depth of your ideas, both the visuals and the written, because it resonates with me, at least with everything. It's a very simple statement, but it just is like, wow, that says exactly how I feel. How do we get our kids to, when I talk to my kids about drawing in school, lately, and more recently, they all start to panic. They're like, I can't draw, I can't do this, I can't do that. And clearly, comics are a much more simplified form of art, depending on, versus like superheroes. It's not the same anatomical, correctness and stuff. And the kids who say they can't draw, when you actually get them to get out of their own way and just try, some of them create the most lovely little characters, and that they didn't even know that they could do.
For $200 at a seafood restaurant in Australia. For $28, you can have.
Can we mute ourselves, please?
Although seafood does sound good
in Australia, yeah.
Better than Kansas seafood.
How would you encourage the kids to just relax and let it flow and stop overthinking, you know, to just try.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I should be asking you all this question because even with my own kids, I can see that resistance to drawing, or like anxiety about drawing, or like, oh well, I can't draw as good as so and so at school, or I drew this one thing pretty good, but then I tried this other thing and it wasn't good. Like, yeah, and for me, I think that's a tragedy,
Yeah.
when there's somebody who could have been a lifelong artist, a lifelong person who draws, and they just stop it because they felt like they weren't good enough. So I don't have a great answer. I know that when I'm talking about comics with in the classroom, um, I try to say, like, even if you can only draw a stick figure, that's okay. There's a comic strip called XKCD by Randall Munroe, which has a lot more a lot more followers than Incidental Comics on social media. But he's an I believe he's a physicist by training,
Hmm.
and he draws sometimes a little more complicated, but really his characters are literal stick figures. And the way he puts his ideas into the panels, the way he uses his characters and his text to express his ideas, it's just as rich as if you open a book by, I don't know, Robert Crumb, or somebody who is the most intricate artist you can think of. So um, and everyone's talent lies somewhere along that spectrum. I mean, I think the simplicity of my own drawings was developed because first they had to fit on a newspaper page that wasn't very big. Second, I had to fit them on a laptop screen that wasn't very big. Now I have to fit them on a little tiny, cell phone screen that wasn't very big. So that forced me to simplify, because if I post a really complicated drawing and I share it on Instagram, nobody's going to see the detail. They're just going to scroll past it, or not see it at all.
Well, that's
But yeah, maybe was there a note in the chat about an idea about
Yeah, Michelle
grouping some of
Francis
that?
says, I often do pair and share moments with my elementary students, and it makes them more comfortable to take risks when they know others are struggling too. I think
Yeah, and
it's
I
so
think
much easier. The younger the kids are, the more open they are. By the time they come to me at high school, they've already decided what they can and cannot do, will and won't do, and it's a struggle to get them to just open up again, and be
right.
a risk taker, or just elementary kids tend to not be so afraid. At high school, it's like, how did they get to be so afraid?
Because middle school happened.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a challenge. It really, really is.
And that's, I mean, your identity as an artist or an artistic person is a double-edged sword, because for every person who has that identity, there's another person who doesn't. And if that's if my identity is, oh, I'm the best artist in the class, and then there's somebody who's better than me, well, where does that leave me? So
Well,
yeah, I just feel like maybe saying, instead of somebody saying, oh, I'm an artist, or I'm good at drawing, say, oh, I draw, oh, I make art. Maybe
mhm.
more as an action than as like a personal quality.
Why does there have to be a best artist of the class?
Right.
Why can't there be multiple different kinds of artists in a
And
class?
honestly, but I think every creative person struggles with this. Like when I go sit at the drawing table, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to make some fun art. I'm like, oh, I want to make some good art. But I feel like my best breakthroughs, and this might be the case in the classroom, is where the art's pursued not as a means to the end of a really good artwork, but as more of a game, or like an activity to play. So there's a French children's book artist and author, children's book author, illustrator named Hervé Toulet. Once again, my French is not there, so that's the pronunciation might be wrong.
Can you spell that for us?
Hervé
Herve
Tullet.
Eullet. You mentioned the physicist illustrator. What was his name?
Oh, Randall Munroe, and it's X, just the letters are XKCD. That's the name of his comic strip. He's done some other longer form books, which are really fascinating too.
Okay.
Comics for engineering nerds, basically. Yeah, and the Hervé Toulet books, Press Here, Say Zoop, there's a bunch of them, but they're all like these interactive games that he does by mixing paint and exploring color and line and patterns. And I think his big thing in reading some of his thoughts on art making are, he's not trying to make art, he's trying to have a session of art making. He's trying to have 30 minutes, an hour, where he's going to say, I'm going to take these paints and take these colors and experiment and play around.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that'll end up at, something really great, but he's not going in saying, I'm going to make this amazing piece of art. He's going in saying, I'm going to play around with this for a little bit and let's see what happens.
You know, it's
And I
funny
think,
that you say that, because over COVID, a lot of people discovered just art as play and for mental health, not to compete with anyone, but for them to have a place to go so that they're not being bombarded with what was going on at the
yeah,
time.
as a mindfulness type activity for sure.
Exactly. And I think that if we try to present it more as that, like, you're not making art to compete with anyone. You're making art to express what's inside you, whether it's an idea or a concept or a picture in your head. That's what these kids need to understand. No, we are not out here competing with each other. We need to find a way to stay healthy and put our thoughts and ideas and our feelings into some form of creative outlet, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whether it's the written word or the visual expression or crocheting or
Uh-huh.
cooking or whatever the form of making falls for that person. You know what I mean? And it's not about a competition. I can't do this as well as that person or that person. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. This should be for everybody, wherever they can find it, whenever they can find it. And I'm talking too much and I'm gonna be quiet.
No, I'm getting excited just hearing that because and actually I referenced that book I'm trying to write with the art teacher as a character. The main character, kind of a fictionalized protagonist of me with some other stuff from other people in my life added in, is a seventh grader who is a really good artist who loves to draw and then goes to school one day and something happens, some other stuff in his life is happening, and stops drawing because of these things, and how he goes from being really into drawing to not drawing to eventually finding his way back. So
Right.
I, sorry, my brain's on that more than just because I was drafting it before we started talking today.
Oh no, that's fine.
But
That's
no,
fine.
I think, and going back to just some classroom exercises where it's like a game, you guys probably have a few you can suggest to each other or to me, but there's a fun one called The Exquisite Corpse, which was like
Oh,
based in the surrealists back in the
I love that. I love that game.
where you're folding a paper accordion style and every person's adding a little bit different.
Yeah.
Maybe one person adds the head and the neck and the arms, and you can get some pretty crazy stuff. But there's probably, and I need to experiment with this. There's probably like a comic strip version of the Exquisite Corpse game where one person draws one panel, one person draws the next panel, etc. But yeah,
That
just
could be a
just
really
where
cool
you're
idea.
where you're remixing the work of the person before you and using that as a jump start point for creativity. Now I know from doing some exercises with elementary schoolers is that that can quickly go off the rails, but a lot of times it goes off the rails in a really fun and hilarious way.
There was a question up here before it goes off my screen. Hang on one second. When it's further up, I have to scroll back. Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? What is the most important part of writing a comic character development? Wait, of writing a comic, character development, plot, or dialogue?
So I will say this question is great for like a traditional graphic novelist.
Mhm.
I've skirted learning how to do all three of those things by making a somewhat generic, like everyman type webcomic character who's basically like me. So one thing you'll notice if you read through my books is there's almost no dialogue. The character is kind of like a very generic. This could be anybody. Obviously, it's informed by my own experience quite a bit. And as far as plot, I've written a few picture books that are a little more of a coherent story, but one of my own critiques in my own work is there's really no plot to my picture books either. So um, I would say though, maybe character development is the one I would pick, just because um, if the reader feels like they're relating to the character, can put themselves in the thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions of that character, the plot, the dialogue can go any way, and you're still going to experience the story deeply. So yeah, just finding that way to represent a character where the reader can embody that character's experience is the most important to me, at least. And I was kind of being self-deprecating about my work, but I do think what I like about the way I've drawn comics is hopefully the reader can have a feeling of like the physicality of the character. So you can feel the person moving across the page, moving through space, having a sense of motion and action. And one thing I love about reading comic strips, whether it's like Peanuts, whether it's superhero comics, whether it's web comics, is in your brain you're almost like following along with the character, and you're like your brain is like mirroring their motion. And so yeah, something I think about a lot when I'm drawing a character in panels is, how is this character moving, how is it progressing the motion, how is it moving the reader across the page, and then along with the story.
When
Sorry
I
for
look at
the
your
detailed
stuff,
answer.
I feel like I'm watching your character, but I'm hearing his inside thoughts. That's kind of like
Yeah, it's an internal
without
monologue.
the traditional bubble over the head.
Uh-huh.
We're just watching you or your character strolling along on their merry way and hearing their thoughts on the page with the pictures.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to bring it back to poetry with the poetry comics book, there's a former poet laureate named Kay Ryan, whose work I really love. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like Emily Dickinson with a little bit more knowing approach. I mean, it's very good. Anyway, so I love Kay Ryan's poetry, and I think she was commenting on being asked, "Oh, why don't you write a novel?" And she said something like, "I could never write a novel. I have no idea what other people are thinking." So I think that's why sometimes my comics hew a little bit closer to poetry, is because it's the inner thoughts and inner life of one character, one voice, and you don't get a lot of outside input of dialogue, conversation. Um, yeah, sometimes there's interaction, but not. But it's really experienced more in the head of the character in that strip.
All right.
So I think poetry does a great job of. Yeah.
We had a comment from forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Mija Forieto. She says, I like to remind my high schoolers how awesome they thought their drawings were when they were 5. And then I asked them to think about the last time they remembered drawing confidently, and it was when they were 5, and that's okay. And if it was when they were 5, tell them that they can pick up wherever they left off, no matter how long ago. I love that.
I'm actually going to write that down.
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, just anything to put you back in the mindset of, when was I excited about drawing? When was I excited about painting? When was I excited about the art that I made? That's like, yeah, that's, I feel like gold for, getting students back in the space of
Right.
the experiment and draw.
When was the last time? When they were fearless. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? You can unmute yourself if you don't want to type it.
Hey, Boo.
Hello? Okay. All right. So back to you, Grant.
No, I mean, so we haven't talked a lot about just the books in general. Is there anything you want to know about art as it relates to making picture books, making comics, more like or would you rather I talk about more just the actual creative practice of being in the room with ideas and that sort of thing?
Yes. Um, I think the creative process and the art practice, as I said in the very beginning, it's hard to find the balance.
Yeah.
And how can we remember in the chaos of our days as they are in the art room, no matter what level we teach, it's crazy time.
Mhm.
Remember to see the little things that could inspire an idea, whether it's for a drawing or for a written thing or an artwork or for how do we create that space in our heads to say in the middle of the circus, that the tornado spinning around us, pay attention to this or pay attention to that, or take a
Yeah, so I
visual
was trying to
snap.
find
Go ahead.
my somewhere in my sketchbook. I had made like my idealized schedule. Now that uh, a few days a week I'm working from home on comics and kids books and whatever other art project I want to work on. Now that I have that sort of unstructured time where some days it's almost like so much I don't know what to do with in a counterintuitive way. I made a schedule of like, okay, here's what my ideal day would look like. So I mentioned the early hours of productive work, whether that's 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever you can find. That's important. But I think there also has to be to build in some like exploratory free time. So, like you were saying, Stephanie, on the taking time to notice, taking time to observe, that's certainly unnatural. um, I'm usually taking time to scroll social media. I'm usually taking time to answer an email, taking time to like think about the next thing I have to be doing, whether it's the dishes or driving my son to soccer practice or something like that.
Mhm.
So if you make kind of an appointment with yourself or a schedule with yourself and say, okay, I know I have this 20-30 minutes on my lunch break where yeah, I could maybe catch up on some work. Maybe I could use it in some you know mindless but fun internet type activity, which we all love.
Yes.
Maybe I can take a walk or go to a quiet place, a library, just a quiet room, or outside with my notebook and take some time to journal to write. And I'm like the worst person to preach on this because I often don't do it. um, I sometimes some weeks I'm like, man, I'm really stressed out. I'm making all this artwork, I'm getting all this stuff done, but I don't feel any joy in it now. Oh, and then I look back at my sketchbook and oh, that's the week or the month I have not put anything new that was just exploratory, observational, unstructured, just thoughtful time. So yeah, it's really easy to get caught up in art making as product and process, but a lot more challenging to view it as open-ended exploration because half the time you do that, nothing is going to come except oh, you saw some nice nice things and the trees were pretty, and etc. But you can almost back into like a pretty inspired state too of noticing, hey, I really noticed something that inspired me and I wasn't looking for it, but now I have this great idea I want to bring back to my drawing table, my painting, my writing.
Right.
Um, but then which also is the problem of going into it now expecting that inspiration. Well, yeah, that's an expectation that doesn't come, but I just think scheduling that is really important. And two, like in my creative day, like if I don't set deadlines on the actual productive work I do, I could literally work till 9-10 p.m. every day. If I need to shut it down at some point and say I'm not going to read a book to get inspired to write my next words of wonder post or to write my next poem. I'm going to sit and read this weird novel that's going to be nothing like my work at all that may get me interested in something, or I'm going to watch this movie that I've heard is really inspiring and good, and I'm just going to use that as like a creative time too. So yeah, building your free time too as a way to get inspiration, I think is really neat as well.
Hmm. Okay, we have two questions. Um, Wendy asks, or she says, I understand you're an orthodontist. Does orthodontistry play a role in how you do your artwork or vice versa? And do you see a connection between the two?
It's all little tiny boxes, whether teeth or panels. I never quite know how to answer this question, but there's definitely a connection, because I developed both careers at the same time. It wasn't like, oh, I really want to be a cartoonist, but no, now I have to go be a dentist. Or it wasn't like, man, um, yeah, they weren't ever in conflict really. They were more in a balance. But what is
Still
nice about
practice? I'm sorry.
how
Do you
I
still?
work, yeah. So today before I came here to talk to you all, I worked my day job from 8 to 5. Tomorrow I'll go from 8 to 5, and it's a nice job, and I'm spoiled in some ways because it doesn't have some of the obligations as if I'd stuck with engineering or if I was a teacher. I don't have outside hours. I'm not grading papers. I don't have big projects. I don't have to go to a bunch of conferences. Um, 8 to 5, I'm going to be working on teeth, and I'm going to be doing that. And when I leave, it's off my plate for the most part. And another cool thing about it is I can actually do some of the more monotonous comic strip work, coloring, formatting, posting, sending emails in between patients, because I'm seeing patients for about 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most. Then I have a little break. Then I pop over to somebody else. So there's these tiny little snippets of time where I'm not going to be doing anything else. So I can kind of check off some of the boxes of the more rote or mundane parts of my art practice. But I recognize not everyone has that freedom and flexibility. I don't I don't know how I stumbled on it really, but I'm glad I did, because I've been slowly able to transition to being more of like a full-time artist, part-time orthodontist. And if you talk to me in a few years, maybe I'll be working Fridays only. Who knows? I don't think I'll drop it completely till my kids are out of braces, because braces are something I enjoy doing, and they're not cheap, and it's a privilege to be able to do it.
Wow. Okay, one more question right now. Cindy Henry asks, how did you decide to try to publish and figure out how to publish your first book?
Yeah, so my first book, I'll see if I don't have it with me, but it's called The Shape of Ideas,
I love that book.
an illustrated exploration of creativity. And I feel like, yeah, it's my most like art teacher-esque book. I think I was, still buzzing with some of those ideas from my high school art classes, and just the pure joy of learning comics and how they were made when I started drawing them. So it's very much like an art student, art teacher type book. Um, and I knew once I started, getting serious about cartooning, I eventually wanted them collected in a book. And I thought it would happen right away, which is anyone who's gotten involved in publishing knows it almost never happens that way. So when I got my first comic strip published in the New York Times Book Review, which was about, I think, 2012, that's when I was like, oh man, I've made it. I'm at the pinnacle of cartooning. I want to get a book published tomorrow. I Googled graphic novel agent because, I knew comic strips, graphic novels, that was a growing thing. I found the name of Judy Hansen, who is still who I work with on a lot of my projects. Sent her an email, and overnight, 7 years later, okay, maybe it was 5 to 7 years later, overnight, we had a book together,
Wow.
which was The Shape of Ideas. So yeah, the joke is I thought it would happen right away. It didn't, but in good time, I kind of had enough ideas to collect together, and create a book. So that was pretty fun.
You were
I
fortunate
sometimes,
to find somebody who would publish for you. A lot of people are having to
Mhm.
self-publish in order to get their stuff out there.
Yeah, and I had self-published, my put them online, or print out zines and bring them to the comic shop locally, on a small scale for quite a few years before that. So I definitely respect self-publishing, and I think anyone who's interested in entering the like professional book world, first off, just make sure you love the craft, and want to want to be serious about it and stick with it. That's the important part, and make sure you're consistently making new work. But number two is find like a literary agent if you want to be published. So that's a big thing. I had no idea going into it, and it seems obvious now. Like anybody off the street emails a publisher, the majority of times that happens, they're just going to ignore it, not be able to see it, be too busy to respond. It might go in a pile somewhere that somebody sifts through and miraculously finds it. Great, that does happen. but more often than not, it's just going to get ignored. So if you find a book agent, it still may take a long time before your work is seen, but that's going to be somebody who represents you, who has connections with the publishers, who knows how the industry works. And then you're going to be much more likely to find those connections that you couldn't really find on your own unless you knew the inside of this industry, which growing up as a kid in Kansas, where my dad worked on computers, my mom stayed at home, I had no idea how the book and art world worked. And sometimes I feel like I still have no idea how it works.
You're lucky to have somebody who just handles all of that.
A professional, and you know, they work hard and they know their thing, their stuff, and I'm sure there's plenty of bad experiences with that world too. But my experience so far has all been positive, and I can't say enough for my book agent, what she does and work she puts in for my listening to my random ideas and pitches and 60,000 word novels that go nowhere, et cetera, et cetera. Kudos to Judy.
So I have a question about in your video that you posted this week. I noticed that you were tracing first some of your drawings that you had come up with. Do you use regular tracing paper, or is it more of a vellum type thing? And does it matter for quality of scanning into Photoshop?
That's a good question. I like to get down to these specific details because materials are so fun to play around with. But my my first step, like I mentioned, is a doodle in the sketchbook. The doodle, it's amazing how often it looks like the final piece. And that's usually done in pen, colored pencil on pretty cheap sketchbooks. My next step is I get out a sheet of about 11 by 17 inch, just copy paper, you know, just like what you would find, you know, to go through a printer, the cheapest paper you can find. I'll use my Uniball Vision artist pen and just do kind of like a loose doodly sketch on that. And sometimes I go back and I try to read these and I can't even read my own handwriting. So that's very, very rough. Then I get to the tracing paper. So I used to work with like rapidograph pens on artboard or like some very expensive paper, and I would just get so tight, like I couldn't draw. And then of course the pen would clog or spill, and you know, then I was stuck cleaning the pen out, and I ruined my paper, and my perfect drawing got so messed up, I would get frustrated. So I have to be very like casual and not finicky at all about my materials, just because of my own personal hangups. That's that's just the way I am. So I use Strathmore 300 series tracing paper, buy them on pads, you know, pretty much any art supply store has them, from Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Amazon. I'm sure I also use a site called Cheap Joe's, and I use Blick and, you know, some of the other main sites. Whoever I see is selling them, I'll buy them. I don't have much allegiance there, which maybe I should. But on the Strathmore tracing paper, I'll start to do a more tighter sketch. I'll lay out my panels in, I don't know that I have one with me. Let's see if I do. Oh yeah, I do. Okay. These Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens. I have 3 different sizes of these. I'll draw with my Pitt pens on tracing paper. It's starting to look a little bit tighter now, but it's still pretty rough. I'll take another layer of tracing paper. I'll use my Pitt pens again. Now the sketch is a lot tighter. It's looking closer to the final. Put another layer of tracing paper over. And so 3, 4, 5 sheets of tracing paper and Pitt pens later, I have my inked lines. Then I'll go over it with my Prismacolor markers, which you can find at any fine art supply store or not so fine art supply store. With my Prismacolor marker, I'll add like a layer of shading, which if you look really close at my final artwork, you can see like these shadows. These shadows are what the Prismacolor marker becomes. So the ink lines are all my line work on tracing paper. The shadows are all the Prismacolor marker I layered over in a single layer. That goes into my giant Epson 3000. Actually, I'm going to get the name wrong. It's an Epson scanner that's large scale, which costs more than my last car. It was probably $3,000 or something. I don't drive very nice cars, but and it's kind of I have mixed feelings about that scanner. I'd like for there to be something different out there, but it's big, it works, I'm used to it. Me and Epson are okay. So I'll scan this big sheet of tracing paper on my scanner. Sometimes I have to turn it around and splice the images together. Usually I have, like on that video, 3 or 4 different scraps I'm scanning in. I go into Adobe Photoshop, um, make the lines like a flat layer of black ink. I make a separate layer for the shading, and then I just drop in color with a paint bucket. So there's probably people who are a generation younger than me who just learned on Procreate and iPad or something a lot more savvy, who would look at this and look at me like I'm a dinosaur or something. I respect that. It's not an efficient way, but this kind of hybrid of the traditional and the digital is really just what I've worked with. Now I've done it so long, I'm efficient with it. But would I recommend it to anybody specifically? I don't know. Maybe try your own way.
Right.
But it's funny, every cartoonist I talk to has this very specific, very weird way of working that they've just developed by doing it so many times. I met an artist named, cartoonist, author, artist named Kristen Radke, who has some great graphic novels for an adult audience. One is called Imagine Wanting Only This, and it's very like serious literary work. And she said, I think for her first book, she just drew with her finger on, I assume, an iPad. Like she didn't have a stylus. She drew it all by finger in this really efficient way, and she did it so much she got good at it. Um, other cartoonists I talk to are these, you know, very old school, like fountain pen. There's a children's book illustrator named Steve Light who has these amazing fountain pens, and I think he just works in like the most like classic way I can imagine. And I'm sure the paper he uses is super high quality. I think he's also a elementary or kindergarten teacher in New York City anyway. But yeah, there's this entire range of supplies and materials and methods, and every artist has a way that works for them. Every way is specific and unique, and to try to copy another person is great, but you're going to find your own like unique way of working that's maybe a twist on somebody else's.
And everybody has their favorite pen, and everybody has
Oh
their
yeah.
paper, and
Uh-huh.
it's all very individual.
It's religious. It's like it's a ritual. Yeah, art is very ritualistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so if one day I woke up and they stopped selling this kind of pen, I'd probably have a bit of a crisis, and but I'd be fine. I would find something else, and I would move on to a different pen, and because yeah, there's no right way. It's just what you're kind of habitually working on. That said, I think some of my biggest breakthroughs are where I'm switching up those methods. I don't have it a lot in my poetry comics book, except maybe this one page. But one thing I've really enjoyed doing is paper collage, along with ink lines. Um, that really brings me back to like, you know, elementary school art class, cutting up paper with scissors, pasting it on, you know, getting out the Elmer's glue sticks, and pasting it on. So let me try to find it real quick. So this one, a comic called Best Friends. I took square sheets of pink and blue paper. So every panel is the pink and blue paper cut in a different way. And I don't think anybody but me looking at this would realize each panel I took literally the same size and shape paper and pasted them together and tried to make a different way of cutting the paper and making it. But that was really fun for me. And I feel like when I'm cutting with scissors, it gets me out of my like confined drawing brain. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know, more in like that free play mode. And I know Matisse, you know, the famous painter, had his drawing with scissors stage, and you can probably see them in, you know, the museums, you know, across the world. But yeah, just channeling my inner Matisse is pretty fun sometimes.
And cutting is just so very satisfying and
Oh yeah,
relaxing.
as
I
long
also,
as the scissors are sharp.
yeah, watch the sharpness. I had a question also about your palette. Um, do you have because you kind of tend to lean toward the same kind of colors a lot. And I'm wondering if that was intentional or subconscious.
Can I share screen again here?
Of course.
Um, And I'm going to show you all how to make a poetry comic. The process starts. Let me reshare. I didn't want to hear myself talk that much.
It's okay.
Um,
Oh, what happened?
are you not seeing me?
So we see you still.
Okay. Can you see my Photoshop now?
I see that you started sharing. Yes, now I see your Photoshop.
Okay. And so I don't know, can you see the swatches on the side here? Let me move this over.
Yes.
Yes, if we move the gallery, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So here's my my poetry comics color palette, which I'm not sure. I think I just stumbled on a default template. So when I'm coloring, I'm going to choose like this red is going to be the character's shirt. This is going to be the hair and the pants. I'm going to try to just kind of stick within this narrow range, because obviously if you've looked at digital color, you know, you can choose any and every shade imaginable. And even within a comic strip, I'm trying to choose like a few different shades. So here's you know, here's a dark blue, here's an orange, here's a green. Those are kind of going to be my base colors. And I want those base colors to really set the mood for it. Sometimes I'll have 2 or 3, sometimes I'll have a couple more. But then when I'm filling in all the colors, I'm just trying to use those as explicitly as possible. That way I'm not going off and extending the palette and using a whole bunch more. And so I'll have the character and you know, the colors of their clothes and skin and hair, and then try to use just 2 or 3 limited colors to fill in the rest of it. And then a lot of times that'll look a little too flat, so I have to kind of deepen it or use different hues or shades of those. But yeah, limiting the colors is like a really big part of my coloring process and drawing process. And I feel like if you look back to Shape of Ideas, I was a little more obsessive about it at that time. I had seen the children's books Olivia by David Wiesner, where it's like black and white and with just 1 or 2 colors in each book. And every book he's changing the color. And that was like, oh, that was like so inspiring for me to see those when my kids were really young and I was discovering picture books again as a grown up. And so that's who I was kind of copying and stealing from at that time, my color palette. I've gotten a little bit more laissez-faire about it, I guess, as I've gone on, but you'll never find the day glow colors of like a, you know, psychedelic 60s comic strip that I draw for the most part.
Is your favorite color orange or blue or both?
Oh, so I was actually looking at my selection of book covers here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think I've been asked this question before. Let me stop my share here. Some blue for my first picture book. What color is nice? A pretty strong blue on the follow-up book, What Sound is Morning. There's a whole lot of blue on this cover of My Words, another picture book. I didn't come up with the title, but a whole book with the title Blue Floats Away, which I used by cutting up paper and illustrated the story by Travis Yonker. The Art of Living, you might call this green, but there's a whole lot of blue there. The Shape of Ideas is all blue. Nothing Ever Happens on a Gray Day. The text is blue. Blue is one of the primary colors, and you know, that I used throughout the palette. So I think, although I've never thought of blue as my favorite color, poetry comics again, it's pretty much in all my book covers in some form. But if you look at the secondary colors, I would judge you by your bookshelf. Orange is like, maybe that's my like, you know, maybe that has some spiritual meaning to me. I don't know. And blue is the primary or the complementary color to balance it out.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's funny. some blue and orange on this spread here. So Yeah, I suppose if I was limited to like black and white and two other colors, doing in my own Olivia book, it would probably be blue and orange.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? We all kind of fall to our own palette or our own color
Uh-huh.
scheme.
And
Yeah.
a personal note, my dad is colorblind, so I think when he reads my comics, he's only getting a surface view of them.
Oh,
He's
wow.
like, he sees, greens and reds, kind of a muddy brown color. So, you know, but I think he still enjoys the comics well enough.
That's well, it's all about the idea and the drawings.
I'm glad it's not a trait passed down on the Y chromosome anyway.
Funny, my dad was colorblind and my son is colorblind.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the day we found out, I was like, "Oh my God, my life is like all about color and my
Right, I can see your
son."
background.
Yeah, and he has the same red and green issues too. That's
But what is his artistic interest? Is he into art making? Is he painting or
You know what? He enjoys doing it with me. We occasionally have family art making days or crafting days. My mom is an artist also. She's
oh,
in the crowd here somewhere too. So we all get together and we make art sometimes together, but it's not his jam, and that's
yeah,
okay. He respects it. He respects the process, and he loves that I do what I do. But
right,
he's in more of the sports and medical end
yeah,
of things. So yeah, but he's always tried and done it, and he enjoys the process. But it's not for everybody, and that's okay. That's okay.
right. Yeah, I feel like the worst thing as a parent I could do is say, "Oh, you have to start drawing, or you have to do this." Like as
Oh
soon as it
no,
becomes an edict from a parent, like, okay, they're definitely not going to do it.
right.
um,
I
which
mean,
is
show
funny.
them and let them discover on their own whether
Yeah, yeah.
it's their thing or not.
Or they'll see you making art and be like, oh, what are they doing? I kind of want to get interested by just being in the presence of it. Which maybe I'm not the best example of it, because I some of my art making an interest I attribute to being forced to do it as a kid. So my twin brother Gavin and I were both we were both really into drawing from a really young age. Um, I think we're competing for the first grade fire safety poster contest so you could draw the best, etc. I won. I cashed in the savings bond last year anyway. Um, but uh, my parents kind of picked up on our enthusiasm and said, okay, you guys are going to start drawing birthday cards for all the family members. So you send them out to cousins or grandparents or aunts and uncles. So we were a bit of forced labor on the art side to like make to make birthday cards. I think for the most part enjoyed it. Probably when I got to middle school, I got tired of it. We stopped doing it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it never actually started feeling like work to me, which most days, yeah, art still doesn't feel like work to me.
It's funny when I make it on my own and it comes solely from me, it's I love it.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling. But as soon as somebody tells you have to do this, it's like, okay, I don't want to do it. It was like in high school when you had to read so many of these classic
Oh
books
yeah.
for your English class. And I would have read them on my own eventually anyway, but as soon as I was told I had to read it in this amount of time for this particular, course or whatever it was, and I had no interest in doing it, none at all. You know, it's
Right.
got to be authentic and from your own interest. We have a comment from Aubrey. Some of the most amazing works of art I've seen came when I had the honor to work with the blind and visually impaired population, children
Wow.
and adults.
I feel like that would open up whole new doors to creativity. That's amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Right? It is. It's incredible to imagine. I can't even imagine how my son sees the world.
So have you all seen the meme? I don't know if it's a meme, the thing going around of how you envision an apple. And so it'll show like, okay, I've seen this on Facebook where put the number the way you see the apple. Do you see it as like a simple line drawing? Do you see the word apple? Do you see a very complicated, like shaded three-dimensional version of an apple? And so everybody has a different mental picture. And if
Oh,
I'm
yes.
trying to imagine what you're seeing when you're reading a story, when you're picturing something that's not right in front of you, or even a piece of art that we're experiencing together, you're
Mhm.
going to be having a completely different experience of that than I am. And I think that's fascinating because I'm so stuck in, me mode all the time. Like to be open to those different ways of seeing and experiencing and feeling. Yeah, that's fascinating. So I think I heard this from my sister-in-law because she was talking to her sister, my wife, about it. And apparently my sister-in-law doesn't picture the story in her brain when she reads a book. She just sees the words, she understands what's going on, but she has no mental picture of it. And I couldn't fathom, like, when you're
Really?
reading a story, how are you not seeing it play in your head like a movie? Like, how are you not seeing it play in this most, like when I'm reading a novel, I'm filling in, okay, well, this kind of looks like this scene from my life, but now I'm filling in these other details that the characters are going through. And so maybe it's a scene in the mountains that's happening, and I know, oh, when I went to the mountains, it looked like this, and my brain is doing all that work for me. So, and she
Right.
was even describing of how when she dreamed, she's not really dreaming in, like, vivid pictures. And that was like, so when she had heard the question, do you dream in color or black and white, that was like a completely irrelevant question to her. So I'm gonna have to interview my sister-in-law some more about this, because yeah, I think this is
Isn't
this
that
is really
incredible?
fascinating. And I think there's probably a name for this, but I haven't looked into it enough to find the name of what this condition or trait is.
Well, in school, we have a questionnaire sometimes that we have to fill out about students, and it asks us, is this student a visual learner or an auditory learner or all of that? And before I started teaching, it's not something I ever thought about. It was I function, I read books, and I see it in my brain like a movie, like you said.
Mhm.
Um, I fill in the blanks, and when a movie comes out from a book that I've read and the character is completely wrong in my mind because they don't look like what I envision them to be, then the whole movie is kind of like off,
Right, right.
right, for me.
It
Um,
didn't score with your mental image of it. Yeah,
it's so strange, but I never even thought about that until I became a teacher. And it really shows you that there's a million different ways that people think, a million different ways that people learn, a million different ways that people interpret the world.
yeah.
Um, and
And we can see it in the art they make. Yeah, which I saw the comment from somebody saying their daughter was the same way, and she's an artist, which I think is amazing. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah, incredible. Um, are there any other questions that anyone would like to either ask on the mic or type into the chat?
Can I ask you all a question
Yes, of course.
from
I
my
was
own
just going to
personal
say, do you
research?
have questions for us?
Yeah. So I guess and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what is kind of like the age or some of the situations where you see the students encountering that first resistance to drawing or making artwork, and how have you been successful in overcoming that? I know we talked a little bit about play as an avenue for that, having it be less of a competitive environment. But are there any other, like, experiences you all have had, with a student who's like, oh, I can't do this, I won't do this, and how did you get past that?
Uh, I can speak from my own experience. I have noticed this is my 21st year teaching. And the beginning, the kids, I would say this is the assignment, we're drawing, we're going to learn how to draw self-portrait, and I use the grid method to help them, get over their fear. And through the years, and I also used to teach perspective, and I know everybody did that. It was, just part of the routine that we all do. And over the years, there is much more resistance to drawing, period. I've also noticed that kids have a very hard time holding a writing utensil correctly. Um, the handwriting quality has diminished over the years, and they just do not want to draw, but they still want to make art. So
Yeah,
I have gone from the fine arts, the drawing and the painting and all of that, into more of a collage and abstract and sculpture and construction, and taking them in that direction so that they're not so resistant, and I get good results. I mean, I miss teaching drawing in my classes, but I'm happier when the kids are happy. You know,
Yeah.
if they're doing something that they can find success in, and it doesn't have to be a portrait and total, you know, real likeness of whatever it is, it could be an interpretation. I'm finding a lot more pleasure in myself when I give a prompt or the assignment and leave it open for interpretation and to see where everybody goes with it. And it's always different from one kid to the next. Um, so that's been fascinating also. And I will,
Taking notes that whole time.
yeah, I'll let other people talk now. Stacy typed in fifth graders usually enter that mindset. I try to show them examples of different styles of art and remind them that their style of art making brings something unique to the projects we're working on, and that quality is going to be different for each student. True.
Yeah,
Um,
one of my like formative experiences of seeing art was going as a kid to the Art Institute of Chicago on a family vacation. I think we had a family reunion in Wisconsin or something, and just seeing, oh, art is not just really amazing, technically sound paintings. It's, you know, this giant Andy Warhol silkscreen of Mao on the wall. It's like a pile of candy in a corner. It's all these things, and like I must have been somewhere in the seventh to ninth grade age range. I feel like, yeah, my mind was blown by seeing all these different ways of in the modern and contemporary art wing of the Art Institute of Chicago, like that I never even envisioned. I live in Wichita, Kansas, which has a great art museum, the Wichita Art Museum, but at least when I was growing up, it was very much, you know, your 1900s through like to the like mid 20th century, you know, Georgia O'Keeffe, Edward Hopper, you know, very very inspiring, very cool paintings, but you know, all a lot of realism in it. So
definitely. We have comments saying, in my opinion, the self-incrimination and resistance is hitting earlier and earlier. 10 years ago, I would have said sixth to eighth grade. Now I'm seeing it as early as second grade. That's from Aubrey. Mary says children are losing their imagination due to social media and screen time. I totally agree. They're not only losing their imagination, they're losing their functionality because they can't do anything without being attached to a device.
I feel like the same way as those kids.
Oh my God. Wendy says, I teach high school and try to strike a balance between abstract and realism, and students find their own comfortability in some way to feel successful. That's great. Tara says, my art is actually dance, K to 8. And when I receive resistance, I teach the kid in a different way. Sometimes no words. Sometimes I hold up a picture. I've used letters and pictures that they see every day, but sometimes I have them take a crayon or pencil and draw a dance and then do the movement they drew. That's
Well, that's cool.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
there's a children's book author illustrator named Remy Charlap who was also a professional dancer, I believe. And so some of his, I think, coolest works are him drawing like an imaginary dance. And I assume they could be actually, you know, performed in real life, but these are just kind of wild and crazy. And so yeah, that's anyway, that's fascinating to me as somebody
Yeah.
who should not be dancing.
I can't even imagine how I would represent dance visually.
Um,
That's really interesting. Samantha says, I'm sorry, as a middle school teacher, they have that mindset already, usually. So I tell them everyone is creative, just finding out how, and then relate drawing specifically. I tell them art is like any sport. You don't go to the championship game without practice and putting in the work. I love that. You
well,
want to be better.
Remy Charlap was the dancer. Oh, I'm sorry, story.
That's okay.
Remycharlip.
You want to be better at art, you need to practice. And they finally relate that even with natural talent, it takes practice. I have to tell my kids repeatedly when they say that they can't do art. I say, well, you didn't go into algebra knowing how to do that either. And you
Mhm.
didn't go into chemistry class knowing how to combine elements. So everything is a learning process, including art. you don't know what you're capable of if you've already decided that you can't before you even try.
And I think one of the limitations of art and teaching art maybe is thinking there is like one right way, like I got so excited talking about all my special pens, but I would hate for like a young artist to see me like, share all these things and be like, oh, I have to do it this way and I have to lay out things this way. And well, he uses this many panels, so I want to do it. So it's like, yeah, I feel like that's where art diverges from algebra or chemistry or something, because in a lot of those, there is a right way and there's one or two or a limited amount of ways to get there. Whereas with art, it's so open-ended, it can be, yeah, thrilling and exciting, but almost crippling too if you don't know, yeah, if you don't know how to take that step to get anywhere. So I'm not sure where I was going with that, but
Well, I actually did a boot camp with my kids, and I threw different exercises at them each day for 5 days for multimedia collage. And I taught them different materials they could use and different methods of putting them together and how to do it. And each day was different. And they were like, oh my God, I had no idea that these things existed. And I didn't know that you could do this with this and mix it with that and put it together this way and blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
So, you have to open them up to being introduced to new tools and new ideas and let them play with it and figure out how they work,
And the mixing too. So back to the poetry comics. So I've been trying to do a lot more like art exercises, inspired by the poetry comics. I have a whole post on my Incidental Comics Substack about how to make poetry comics with like 5 or 6 different ways in. And I actually tried this one with my kids, and then with a big class of 4th through 6th graders, maybe 200 or 300 kids yesterday, which was terrifying. Anyway, so we all learn about poetry in school, and it's kind of maybe a little bit stodgy. Some people like me are super inspired by it for life. Others are say I never want to read a poem again. Kind of like drawing in a way.
Yeah.
But we all know or probably read a haiku or exposed to haiku or know what it is. Haiku, you think about an ancient form of Japanese poetry. It's about nature usually. There's a lot of times 5 syllables in the first line, 7 in the next line, 5 in the next line. So we can write a haiku poem. That's simple. I think that's a fun exercise for people who are interested in poetry and who maybe are more casually don't care as much about poetry. So my exercise was combining haiku with a comic strip, because I think the Venn diagram of kids who are really into poetry and really into comics doesn't intersect too often. And so my exercise, which I think hopefully was pretty successful, was to take the haiku about the old pond and to make it into a comic strip. And I actually did this on my Instagram a few posts back. So the haiku is: old pond, frog jumps in, water sound. Pretty simple.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have the right number of syllables because that's kind of like the most literal translation from the Japanese. But so how could you put that into panels now? Most people are going to stack the panels 3 horizontal panels, like 3 lines. So maybe we can put the words in these panels and add pictures and make a comic out of it. And then if you want to get a little more challenging, you can try different panel structures. So maybe instead of the vertical lines of a haiku, it's these panels that are stacked vertically but progress horizontally. Maybe you can make it like make a circle, and just challenging them to take a haiku, a really simple haiku that they've written or that they found in a textbook or that their teachers taught them, to use these very basic shapes to make a comic strip. Maybe you can make diagonal panels to add pictures, use the 3 lines of words in 3 panels and create a haiku. So anyway, that's my poetry comics tangent on how to combine 2 kind of dissimilar things to an art exercise. Um,
Can you post the link to you mentioned in your blog, the entryway into the poetry and
yeah,
comic?
would I type that into the chat?
Yeah, or copy and paste it? Can you do that?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, for those of you who are art teachers in New York City and you need your CTLE credits or a certificate, even if you're not in New York City, I'm going to post the link to the document, and Mary Beth, who is my partner on the CTLE stuff, um, will send out the certificates tomorrow. So I have posted that. Just fill out the doc, and then Mary Beth will send you your certificates. And Grant, you're going to post the link to your blog.
Yeah, let me find the chat here.
Perfect. Got that.
And then I'll also find where the final comic, the poetry comic I made of that haiku. Let's see if I can find it.
I don't know, Mary, you said you teach in Buffalo. If you still need some kind of certificate for, oh no, you can't write in the document. Mary Beth emailed it to me. I will let her know that can't write into it. Hang on a second. She couldn't make the session tonight. All right, I just messaged her. So I was saying, if you need the certificate, you can use what Mary Beth will send you. I just messaged her to give everybody permission to edit the doc. So the certificate should work for everybody, but specifically for New York's CTLE credit as well. I'm hoping that she writes back. Need permission. So okay, she said, Mary Beth said to try now in the doc. Can anybody tell me if it's working?
I see some thumbs up.
Yes? Okay, good. Okay. Thank you. All right. So yeah, Mary Beth is my partner with the documenting and CTLE stuff. Great. Okay. So I wanted to just thank you so much for sharing your very valuable time with us and giving us a little glimpse into your head and and your process and your experience. I love learning about how other people do what they do and how they fit it into their life, because it gives me ideas on how I can fit things into my life, everything that I want to do, because there's never enough time to do it all. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I did record this, so it will be posted in our, we have a YouTube channel for Nikata. It's Nikata UFT. That's NYCATA UFT on YouTube. And we have playlists there that go back to 2020. We have so many sessions and great people who have shared their experience and talent with us. And I'm so excited to have you as part of the lineup now. And really, it was so nice to meet you, fellow.
Thank you, Stephanie. I really appreciate your questions, and I'm super excited by everyone's thoughts they've shared on, how they've worked with their students and their experiences. I don't know, stuff like this just leaves me energized to go out and make make some art and to teach and to share with students as well. So yeah, this means a lot to me too, and I appreciate being a part of it.
It's so inspiring. It really was. And I have a great lineup coming up. So keep a lookout for my postings and my flyers. We have 2 every month through June. So keep joining us. Hopefully maybe if you have free time, you'll want to pop in and join us as a guest next time.
I'll have the kids watch behind me.
So thank you again, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful night. If you're having a problem, still try refreshing the the document. Okay, and I'm gonna put my email. Sorry, before everybody leaves, I'm gonna put my email here. If you have a problem, just email me directly, dnspt@aol.com. Okay. And I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks for our next session. Watch for the flyer. And Grant, a pleasure, and thank you again.
Thank you again. Have a great night.
Good
Thanks,
night,
Karen.
everyone.
Good night. Thanks, Karen.
Good night. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, when I clicked on the link, it was just taking me to his Instagram account. It was weird. I don't know why.
Thank you so much. That was good.